Hello, everyone. So I wanted to do a video about Trump's first day in office, just generally, and I found as I prepared for this that it's kind of a two-pronged thing where it's like you can't really talk about Trump without also talking about Obama. I think that's kind of indisputable in the sense that Trump had his political career started with the birther movement by saying Obama was not born in this country. And even today, I think something like 40% of Republicans believe that he was born in Kenya. So, people talk about like, oh, there's no racism today. Racism wasn't the thing that affected the election. Got news for you. I mean, racism, just as a broad topic, you have Islamophobia, which like I always kind of try to be a little hesitant and say like there's an ideological argument where I think you have to have a secular approach, obviously, just to be American because America is the first secular country. So have that approach, but also you have to condemn anti-Muslim bigotry. Um, so things they're never as simple as the media puts it. For one thing, certainly the mainstream media we see on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, which why would that be part of the mainstream media? I don't know. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna talk about Trump and Obama, and I think it's look they honestly have something in common in that Trump will say things where I agree with him a little bit, and there's a lot that I don't agree with. And Obama's the same way. There's things that he's done that I really like, but also there's just so many things where I'm just like what are you thinking? And we'll get to all the things that I kind of have to parse out. But yeah, with Russia as an example, this is a great example of how foreign policy with the Democratic Party has shifted. And we used to have this non-aggression approach, and we would always talk about diplomacy over intervention. But now that's totally changed. We shouldn't even be that surprising. I mean, because look, he said in 2008 that he wanted to get out of the war in Iraq and just the Middle East in general. And look where we are now. We're involved in 7 different countries, and now we're escalating with Russia. If you haven't read, the New York Times came out with a report that's declassified, basically laying out the conclusions of all the different government agencies, and they're saying, Putin had his hand in the hack of the election. Now, first of all, I want to talk about the framing of that is really detrimental to the country in general, honestly. I was gonna say to the Democrats by not being specific enough, but it's a detriment to the whole country to have this framing of they hacked the election. What does that really mean? That when you hear the phrase hack the election, you automatically think, oh, they must have tampered with the results somehow, vote tallies. And honestly, if you're watching mainstream media and you're not really like a Politico, so someone who follows these things, I'd have to say, you would probably, be led to that conclusion. And that's not even the claim being made. I think the Democrats are kind of just not being specific on purpose in a way to leave things open. They want to have political maneuvering, obviously, and by not really, they don't address the leaks themselves that came from the emails, and that's what the hacking part comes from. They hacked the emails that supposedly influenced the results. Well, first of all, just to dispel that notion, half the country didn't vote. Was that all Russia? I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you want to talk about Russia's role in it, did they make half of the country not vote? It's truly frustrating to have this conversation because there's a lot of things where I kind of sympathize with both sides. I think there's a potential threat to be had with Russia hacking these emails just as like a cybersecurity issue. But yeah, I mean, look, we should have seen these emails anyways. These things exposed Hillary for what she is, and she's a corrupt politician, a neoliberal who has honestly just made some really poor decisions. And look, a lot of those decisions were already clear before the leaks. So this notion that they hacked the election, I don't. I think it's a little overblown, even though there is a lot of merit to what's going on. I've said that I was, skeptical basically up until this point about whether Russia had an involvement in this, and I'm still a little skeptical to believe the government agencies at their word. But look, it's really not going to matter at the end of the day. We're kind of in this conflict right now, and it's a conflict that could escalate to war. I don't know if it will, but even having said, it may not be war, it's still very dangerous territory we're entering in. We're like two really powerful imperialistic forces colliding, and we're kind of in this. I almost think of it as a gang dispute in a way, and you settle these things on the street because you can't go to authorities. I feel like cybersecurity has not really flourished like just other things that we've dealt with in politics, partly because the internet is still fairly young. So yeah, at the end of the day, I would hope for a more diplomatic solution to all this, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. It looks like it's gonna be a little bit more brutal than that. And what Trump's kind of doing, where he's coming from, is still dangerous because he's like, oh, we should get close with Putin, and on the surface you might say like, oh, that's not aggression, that's fine, but at the same time, getting close with Russia is a little broad, and it could be for the wrong reasons. People don't really think about this. I think it's kind of just nepotism, and you're together on certain things and not on others, and it's like a kind of like a gray area. Like, what do you do if this happens? What happens if you disagree on this? But yeah, also just the nepotism of it is really, it kind of just makes me concerned how we're, continuing the same things that we've been doing, which is perpetual war, fights over natural resources, just competition, in terms of capitalism. Like, for example, Rex Tillerson is the Trump pick for Secretary of State. He's great friends with Putin. So, and we're getting close with this guy who has done bad things. The U.S. has done bad things too. But look, I think people, they almost use that as an excuse. It's like, oh, the U.S. is bad too. Well, it doesn't mean, two wrongs don't make a right, So, Russia kills journalists. We don't do that. So we could have this debate about which one is more bad. Is the U.S. or Russia? But it's not going to lead anywhere great, I don't think. Now we're seeing an effort to make our own propaganda. Oh, isn't that great? If you haven't looked this up, it's totally factual. We're basically trying to make misinformation for other countries. And also, in a way, to kind of like indoctrinate our own people. We're trying to instill certain ideas in them. This comes from the distrust of government agencies, but it's the exact wrong way to do. Like people distrust you, so now you're gonna make the argument I'm gonna cram down your throat. You should trust us. You should trust us. Not gonna work. Not gonna work. You gotta be honest. You gotta be forthcoming about all the flaws that our country has made, and we've made a lot, despite the fact that like patriotism in this country, I think, is just completely run amok. And it's like you can't criticize the U.S. for anything, lest you be smeared as like, oh, you're anti-American. But anyways, with the propaganda, Trump is obviously taking part in this too. He's very skilled at it, and maybe yeah his campaign in general. I'm sure it's not just Trump. They're very skilled at this. I went to his website, and I was amazed by what I found. I thought, you know what, this is fairly effective, and I almost kind of, it sunk in just how people get sucked into these things, and I absorbed how it felt like reality TV. I mean, he's a reality TV star, this guy, or he was, and it's like he made this interactive website where it's all just slogans, basically. It's all pictures. It's like memes, and it's the Trump contract. Oh yeah, the Trump contract. He's gonna do great things for you because he says he's gonna do great things for you. Even though you look at his cabinet picks, what he says, it's pretty insane. But you look at the website, and it's all this stuff like I stand with the Trump contractors, like I stand with this, make America great again, and they're just all these slogans. So I wrote them down here: end corruption, term limits, honest government, drain the swamp. That was the big one. And look, first of all, I'm going to address the term limits. I've seen people across the political spectrum say like this is a good thing. I totally disagree. Totally disagree. Look, you're gonna stop Bernie Sanders from being himself, a career politician, someone who has fought for people his whole life. And now you're saying, oh, we have to put an arbitrary number, whatever number, 8 years, 4 years, whatever. I don't know. Just like, what is the right answer to that? Like what you're gonna say? This is the right limit. I think it's a slippery slope. But also, people have to realize we have a thing called the revolving door in this country. Okay, when you get out of Congress, you a lot of times become a lobbyist for companies. And what you're doing with term limits in this current system with the influence of money in politics, what you're doing is pushing these politicians through the revolving door. And there's just going to be more nepotism, in my opinion. I think that's honestly undeniable. You're going to have more people exiting politics as a result of term limits. So you either work for any Wall Street firm name that you could think of, or just like a lobbyist for any company. I don't. Does that really sound good to you? Like having more people in those positions? Whatever. If you think that's good, good for you. People don't really give Obama enough credit for what he did to the economy. He cut the deficit. And Obamacare, by all measures, saves the country money. And Republicans just lie, and they really they obstruct extremely well, and they blocked the Supreme Court nominee as one example, and it pulled off. They pulled it off. So look, at the end of the day, I think we have to do the real left approach, single payer. Bernie is 100% right about that, and we just gotta hold our politicians accountable. It's truly unreal to me how someone can just make promises like this and then people buy into it. But this is where we're at. And so as far as the healthcare thing, There's no empirical evidence showing that the U.S. can't afford this. We have so much waste that we could do something about, and then we just don't. We let people in power just run amok, and it's enough. People were saying that with Trump because he had an anti-corruption message. Hillary didn't have that. I guarantee you she didn't have that. If you ever watch the debates, I mean, like, money in politics, like, never came up hardly in the debates, but I know for a fact that Trump would talk about these insiders, these things happening in the bureaucracy of things, and Hillary has nothing to say about that because she's part of that process. So, again, wrong candidate for the wrong election. Something I always go to. And we have all this waste, and at the same time, we have an infrastructure of D, grade D. We have Flint, Michigan is in shambles due to the water crisis and so many other things. Trump had a populist message, and people, I think, kind of are dismissive of that. It's just, I don't know where it comes from. Because these are just terms. These things have meaning only as much as you put into them, you know? You can have a populist message that's resonating with people that's, you know, on the liberal side of things. And you could say, like, let's go after the elite for, you know, abusing the laws that we have. They use the laws to their advantage in order to you know, not pay taxes. They have tax havens. And this is where we're at. We are desperate to change the system that we elected this buffoon. The Democratic Party, I think, has failed us. And honestly, I don't even know if I can support them anymore. I have to see where they're going to take the party, but it's getting harder for me every day, I think. It's getting hard for me to sit back and say I like the direction you're going. We need a grassroots movement. Bernie was right about that too. We need to change the way Washington is done, not from the top down, from the bottom up. We can't go up to these people in power and say, like, hey, we're going to hold you accountable now. Will you totally do what we want you to do? No. It's not how it's going to work. Stronger military. That was the last slogan. Actually, not the last slogan. I'll save the best for last. But stronger military is you know, back to foreign policy, is a very important one, because we are not going to be involved in these perpetual wars anymore, or we shouldn't be, when we can't take care of our own veterans. This is an important issue that it was like a part of the mainstream dialogue for a little bit with the VA scandal, that they were like burying files and people were getting care, but now no one talks about the fact that veterans are struggling, and it's a lot because there's so many of them coming back from these wars in the Middle East, like the longest wars in our history. We have to do something. Trump talked about that, and Hillary just had platitudes to say. She had just nice little slogans, whereas Trump, he was very terse in his approach and in his manner, but he was direct. Look, and I think that appealed to people. He said, we're going to do something. We're going to try and help them. And look, I mean, like, he skipped down on the Fox News debate, as you recall, because Megyn Kelly was totally going to, like, eat his eyes out or something. And he said, he's like, okay, I'm going to have this fundraiser for the veterans. And then he didn't even donate the money to the charity until the press called him out. So, look, Trump's not, his hands aren't clean when it comes to the veterans and taking care of them, but he had the right messaging. So you can't blame him for that. I would totally come out and say I was wrong, and if he really looked out for the veterans, I would totally come out and say I was wrong. But I just don't buy it. I just don't. He said so many things that are extremely questionable. Like, I want to take out the families of ISIS. I want to torture even if it doesn't work. It's not looking good. And we can't be looking at this as a business opportunity either. Look, Hillary Clinton said we should think of Iraq as a business opportunity. That's how screwed up our political climate is, that the left party, the liberal supposedly party, is saying we should think of Iraq as a business opportunity. That's one person in the Democratic Party, right? She ran for president, if you don't recall. So, this is exactly why she was the wrong person for the job. And look, I voted for her, okay? I wanted her to be president, but she did a lot of things, said a lot of things that didn't sit well with people. Now I'm going to finally get to Trump's first day in office. Yay! You excited? Okay. Stop being silly. This is no joke. This is from the New York Times. Ready? He will redirect immigration enforcement, alter trade relations with China and other nations, relax restrictions on energy production, halt efforts to combat global warming. I'm sure this is all very drain the swamp, right? Just wanted to emphasize that. It's like, yeah, okay, we have oil companies, we have fracking, and these things are really detrimental to our environment, and it's all big business basically lobbying the government. But yeah, we're going to have to relax the regulations in order to, new jobs, the market, free market. Okay. Make America great again. Lift curbs on guns. That one really struck me as weird because hardly any gun legislation ever gets passed, especially on a federal level. It's like you can't ever get anything on either side. So just nothing gets done. I just don't know what he's referring to specifically. I have kind of mixed views on guns. Won't really get into them, but I have to assume lift curbs on guns just means less regulation, and that's not really what I'm in favor of. I'm in favor of some level of regulation, but I can't really say what he's thinking on that. And look, now that it says push for congressional term limits, I already talked about that, demand a new strategy for defeating the Islamic State. All that on the first day. So let's break all this down. Sorry, just gotta gather my papers here. Immigration is an issue where I think Bernie Sanders kind of had a real emphasis, like, yeah, we have to do pretty substantial reform. I didn't feel like that was as evident with Hillary. She didn't talk about really changing the immigration process, like a pathway to citizenship. I feel like everyone and their grandma says that. And that's basically probably what Bernie was saying too, but he really did kind of hammer it home and said, like, that's an issue we have to reconcile with. Whereas Hillary, it was just blended in with all the other issues. And it's needed, but look, what Trump is going to do is totally ridiculous. You can't deport all illegal immigrants. That's what he said he's going to do. Who knows what he'll actually do. And he's been fooling everyone the whole time. He said Mexico will pay for the wall. Well, apparently not. Apparently we're going to pay for it, and then they're going to pay us back, which they're totally not going to pay us back, because why would they pay for something that they didn't ask for? But look, he's the negotiator. I mean, like, I had like a TV show and things. Trade should be examined, I think, and that's, look, Trump, I think, is totally right to point that out, and he's kind of like almost spot on with this. I don't know if I believe that he's going to stay consistent. I feel like he'll probably pass a trade deal that's TPP or perhaps not TPP that the Republicans propose. But on the messaging, look, he's totally right. It's shouldn't have happened, TPP. It's basically dead now, but look, the corruption is just too much. And Hillary was definitely not calling it out enough. She called it the gold standard. She famously flopped on that in the debate, and it was a disaster. That's all I'm going to say. Hillary risked everything. Look, the Democrats risked everything. They put their faith in this candidate and said, I guess it's all good. Everything's looking, A-okay. They weren't honest enough. It wasn't Barack Obama 2008, and that's why she lost. Look, something that I think is not really being said that I just thought of that I want to put out there. Trump got over 300 electoral votes. Bush got less than that. George W. Bush. Not liking the sound of that, are you? The country's just doing fine. Global warming. I'm not even going to go into detail with that. Like, the science is quite resoundingly clear, and Trump is, I think he's honestly just playing dumb. He's pretending that all the science isn't real. He's like, oh, no one knows. No one knows. I mean, like, if I don't know, then I guess no one knows. I guess it's probably just for the nepotism and the big business that they want to really go, full system go. All systems go. That's the phrase I was looking for. So the Islamic State. Ta-da! Big finale. Because this is all related to foreign policy. I think this is a really big blunder for the Democrats. Trade and foreign policy are a big, big blunder for them. They've actually, I mean, and trade has kind of, this was a problem with Bill Clinton, with NAFTA. But foreign policy, on the other hand, we haven't really seen a shift like this until now. We have Libya, intervention, didn't get the goal we wanted, clearly. It's not like it's any more stable. Red line in Syria, Obama waffled on where he's going to stand on that. I think we have like this basically third option where we just don't like both sides in a civil war. Lovely. Iraq and Afghanistan, we're still there, of course. Iran, he sabotaged his own deal. He renewed the sanctions for no reason. Iran had stuck up their end of the deal, and they were totally transparent with the IAEA to go in and inspect their sites. Then Israel, we give billions of dollars in aid to them, and all we ask for in return is try and get a two-state solution. Do your best. It's not even that they don't do their best. They actively go in the opposite direction. At the end of the day, you have powerful friends like this. You have Saudi Arabia. They have a very powerful army. And we're friends with a country that beheads people, subscribes to the same ideology as ISIS, and we're involved in these conflicts because supposedly Sharia law is bad. In Afghanistan, we're going to fight the Taliban. That was never our intention to take out the Taliban, but we're going to take them out because Sharia law is bad. So I just want to sign out and say, be mobilized. I'm gonna probably that's like a common theme that I want to always go back to. You got to stay mobilized. Keep read up on these things. We can't just sit back and do nothing.